good day, one and all, friends and foes. You know who you are. I'm Cal, and you're listening to Missing Links Movie Podcast, your weekly reel of the latest in film news. We're going to spend some time looking at top billed articles, new trailers, release dates, what's coming out this weekend, as well as our spin-off section of smaller stories. So whether you're a fan of Mr. and Mrs. Smith or Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, this is the podcast for you. The pod is currently on Spotify and YouTube on the channel Missing Link Movies. This podcast is unedited, improvised, and just stream of consciousness. So we are going to have a fun time talking and not doing anything else. All right, so without further ado, let's introduce our top billed stories this week, starting with the box office report. Last weekend, we had Bob Marley, One Love, maintain its number one position, but opening at number two, the anime movie Demon Slayer Kimetsu no Yaiba to the Hashira Training. And at number three, also a new film opening, Ordinary Angels, which I believe is a faith-based film. And at number four, we had Madam Web. 5, Migration. Number 6, Argyle. Number 7, Wonka. Number 8, a new movie last weekend, Drive Away Dolls. Number 9, The Beekeeper. And number 10, The Chosen, Season 4, episodes 4 to 6. So, not a whole lot to say about the weekend, last weekend. Other than it is the sort of just kind of the calm before the storm of Dune Part 2, which looks to be absolutely smashing it. And that that opened this weekend, and I imagine for the podcast episode next week we will be seeing an incredible debut when all is said and done for Dune Part 2. Moving on to our actual stories. First up, we got Variety's Rebecca Rubin reporting Disney's shakeup. Sean Bailey out as production president, David Greenbaum to lead newly combined live-action division in 20th Century Studios. Disney executive Sean Bailey is exiting after 15 years as the Motion Picture Group's president of production. He'll be replaced by Searchlight's chief, David Greenbaum, who has been named to the newly created role of president of live-action in 20th Century Studios. In his new post, effective immediately, Greenbaum will report to Disney Entertainment co-chairman Alan Bergman. This shakeup merges two of Disney's film divisions, live action, responsible for remakes and spin-offs of the studio's classics, and 20th Century Studios, formerly known as Fox, the husk of the company that Disney bought in 2019. Bailey, who has overseen Disney's live-action slate since 2010, isn't completely cutting ties to the company. He will segue to serve as a producer on Tron Ares and other studio projects. During his tenure, he oversaw adaptations of beloved properties like 2010's Alice in Wonderland, 2014's Maleficent, and 2016's Jungle Book, as well as a string of billion-dollar hits like The Lion King, Beauty and the Beast, and Aladdin. But Disney endured a rough 2023 at the box office, including the big-budget misfire of The Haunted Mansion, which hailed from Bailey's division. While The Little Mermaid remake didn't completely flounder with $569 million worldwide, it failed to achieve the success that greeted prior live-action adaptations of Disney's animated classics. Let's see, and then we got some statements. Back to the article. Greenbaum most recently served as president of Searchlight Pictures, where he jointly managed all aspects of the studio's film and television output with Matthew Greenfield. Now Greenfield will have the sole oversight of Searchlight and continue to report to Bergman. As a 17-year veteran of the indie division, once owned by 20th Century Fox, Greenbaum worked on The Shape of Water, Nomadland, The Favorite, and Black Swan. Prior to Searchlight, he helped shepherd films like No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood as a development executive at Miramax Films. Let's see. Amid the restructuring, Steve Asbell will report to Greenbaum and continue to serve as president of 20th Century Studios, a role he's held since March 2020. He's one of the creative forces behind Avatar and its 2023 sequel, as well as Planet of the Apes and Alien. Among the titles on Disney's live-action and 20th Century slate, Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, the sequel Alien Romulus, not the sequel to Kingdom of the Planet of the Apes, but the sequel to the Alien movie, and the Lion King spinoff, Mufasa. The studio has remakes of Snow White, starring Rachel Zegler, Moana, and Lilo and Stitch in development. So I actually read another article that kind of was talking about what this means, what for Disney, because now rather than having kind of those two separate divisions of Disney's live action films under 20th Century Studios, and they're just kind of like Disney's own live action division, they're now, putting those two together under one leadership, with a guy who has quite a different sort of experience in terms of the movies that he's put out. David Greenbaum, coming from Searchlight. Searchlight is an indie film distributor. And so the kind of movies they have put out at Searchlight are the kinds of movies that, that are less about smashing the box office and more about, film. And a lot of the films you see at, Oscar nominated at the Oscars, many of them are films that come from places like Searchlight Pictures. So with Greenbaum taking the lead now of 20th Century Studios and Disney's live action division, I'm not sure if necessarily we're going to get, a string of Oscar nominated live action Disney movies, live action Disney remakes or anything like that. But it is an interesting change coming from, Sean Bailey, who sort of led the way, who kind of spearheaded the effort to do these live action Disney remakes to make some absolute bank, from people's nostalgia and audiences, tastes. So it's an interesting shakeup. This other article I read mentioned how, it was less about what Disney's future output will look like and more of saying how, this is helping to position Alan Bergman, who David Greenbaum will report to, in a spot where he is in a stronger position to replace Bob Iger once Iger leaves. The article also just talked about some various other positions and change going on at Disney because of their less than stellar performance in the box office. So yeah, quite a bigger change for Disney leadership with Sean Bailey leaving, because he's been responsible for these huge live action remakes, and we may not be getting as many of those anymore now that he's out. This current slate that we've got with Mufasa, Lilo and Stitch, Snow White, it may be the last kind of string of live action remakes we get, but we'll see. It's an interesting development. So, all right. Moving on to our next story. This comes from Deadline's Valerie Complex. Michael biopic casts its Jackson 5. Lionsgate and Universal Pictures International have announced the 8 actors set to portray members of the Jackson 5, Jermaine, Marlon, Tito, and Jackie, at various stages of their lives in the Michael Jackson biopic, Michael. Jamal R. Henderson and Jaden Harville will play the respective older and younger versions of Jermaine Jackson. Trey Horton and Jalen Lyndon Hunger will play Marlon. Ryan Hill and Judah Edwards are Tito, and Joseph David Jones and Nathaniel Logan McIntyre have been cast as Jackie. Directed by Antoine Fuqua and written by John Logan, Michael will star Jafar Jackson, the King of Pop's nephew, in the titular role, with Giuliano Cruvaldi as the younger version of Michael. The film is in production and set for a global release on April 18th, 2025. Others in the cast include Coleman Domingo and Nia Long as Jackson's influential parents, Joe and Catherine, and Miles Teller as Jackson attorney John Branca. The film will focus on Jackson's career highlights, beginning with the days he fronted the Jackson 5 to becoming the world's biggest star, but also deal with the pedophile accusations that dogged his later years up to his death in 2009 at age 50. Let's see. Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, that's mostly what we're looking at. Reading about these actors, rather, I'm not familiar with, honestly, any of them. I think most of them, or if not all of them, have been in other stuff, but I just haven't seen anything with them in it. Nor have I seen anything with Jafar Jackson, who was playing Michael Jackson. I don't know. I'm not sure what his history is. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, it's so like typical, but the only actor kind of in this movie so far that I'm familiar with is Miles Teller, the one white guy. So, kind of awkward, but if you are looking forward to a Michael Jackson biopic, there it is. I'm actually kind of surprised. So the synopsis says that they will deal with, some of the pedophile accusations, as it says, that dogged his later years. Because I feel like biopics about musical artists tend to be a little safe, especially considering this is the first. Yeah, it's interesting. I'm not I didn't know if they'd go there, but I suppose they are. And it is interesting, the string of musician biopics we've been getting recently. I mean, obviously we've had those for a long time, but just like, I don't know, Bohemian Rhapsody, Rocket Man, and even the upcoming ones, like just in the last few weeks, we've talked about Bob Marley. I guess that's come out now, but we've got a Bee Gees movie made by Ridley Scott. We just had the Sam Mendes Beatles movies just get announced. So it's interesting how we got Elvis. So yeah, just I don't know. There seems to be a rash of musician biopics coming out recently. An interesting trend. I think it's, because these, I don't think any of these musical biopics are necessarily smashing the box office like superhero movies or anything like that. But it's possible they're a reliable way to cash in on that musician's fan base for a relatively low budget. You don't need a significant amount of CGI or A-list actors to draw people. You don't have to spend a lot of money on A-list actors or CGI or things of that nature to get audiences to come to theaters. You just kind of bank on the audience's inherent, fandom or love for that musical artist. So that may be what we're seeing with this recent trend. Now that other movies like superhero movies aren't as reliable, or Disney live action remakes, but Disney only is relevant to Disney, and there's plenty of other studios that are coming out with movies that need a safe bet at the box office. So that may be the reason why we see several of these musical biopics. But this one is coming from Lionsgate, which, yeah, Lionsgate. Cool. All right. So, and then finally we have, coming from Variety's Rebecca Rubin and Zach Sharf, Liam Neeson in talks to star in Paramount's... Oh, wait, no. Wait. Hold on. I've got the wrong article pulled up. So Liam Neeson was in talks a year and a half ago to star in a Naked Gun reboot for Paramount. But we just finally got confirmation of when it is set. Okay, here we go. Yeah. Naked Gun reboot set for 2025 with Liam Neeson to star, coming from the Associated Press. Paramount Pictures is moving ahead with a long gestating remake of Naked Gun, the studio announced Wednesday. Liam Neeson will star as the bumbling police detective Debin in the role made famous by Leslie Nielsen. Akiva Schaffer Hot Rod, Pop Star Never Stop Popping, a couple other movies he directed, will direct the film, set for release in July 2025. The script is by Dan Grigger, Doug Mann, and Schaefer, who collaborated on 2022's Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers. The Naked Gun films, derived from the TV series Police Squad, were high-water marks for slapstick comedy. They ran over 6 years. The Naked Gun from the Files of Police Squad in 1988, The Naked Gun 2.5, The Smell of Fear, 1991, and Naked Gun 33 1/3, The Final Insult in 1994. Nielsen died in 2010 at the age of 84. Before playing Lieutenant Drebin, Nielsen had been largely a dramatic actor. It's been dawning on me slowly, that for the past 35 years, I have been cast against type, Nielsen once said, and I'm finally getting to do what I really wanted to do. So yeah, I guess I put this in the top billed stories, I guess, because Liam Neeson's a pretty, pop A-list actor. Naked Gun, not necessarily the most critically acclaimed comedies of all time, but they are very solid. I've only seen the first one. In fact, I just watched it recently. But I think casting Liam Neeson as that role, where he's normally... He's had a couple of comedic roles. I'm not sure if he's done many on-screen ones, but I think he played the cop guy in the Lego Movie, so that was animated. But casting him as, in a comedic role as, Lieutenant Drebin in Naked Gun is, I think, a pretty solid choice to have that cast against type the same way that Leslie Nielsen was. So if you're a fan of Naked Gun, you got that to look forward to next year in 2025. Looking at Schaefer's other work, Hot Rod, Pop Star Never Stop Popping, Chip and Dale Rescue Rangers, there's a common thread with all three of these, and that is Andy Samberg. Andy Samberg starred in all three of these movies, which makes me, I don't know, it makes me wonder that we will probably also see Andy Samberg in this movie in some capacity. Maybe a cameo, maybe a side role, but I think we'll see him in there. Kind of, and with Paramount announcing this on Wednesday, they also announced something I was excited about with the sequel to Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. They announced it is coming out in 2026. I think October 2026, which is a long ways away. That's over 3 years since the first one. But I'm excited for that, and I will wait patiently for it to the best of my ability. Okay. Let's see. All right, so that's a wrap on our top stories. So let's fly in our spin-off section where, talk about some things, some smaller stories that don't necessarily need a lengthier discussion, but things that are fun to talk about regardless. Sometimes they do, require a lengthier discussion. Just whatever I feel like talking about. So we've got 4, little things here. First of which is not necessarily about theatrical motion pictures per se, but is in the filmmaking realm. We've got Deadline exclusively reporting from Peter White and Nelly Andriva, Harry Potter series closing in on writer as names of the 3 finalists emerge. Okay, let's see. As Deadline reported exclusively earlier this month, the field of writers in the running to adapt J.K. Rowling's Harry Potter books into a live-action series for Max has been narrowed down to 3 finalists. We can now reveal their names. According to sources, they are Francesca Gardner, Tom Moran, and Kathleen Jordan. The trio will be able to hone in on their pitches for the next couple of months, with a decision on who gets the job expected in June, we hear. As Warner Bros. Discovery CEO David Zaslav announced last week, the Harry Potter series is slated to debut on Max in 2026. Looking at kind of what has led up to this, but as talking about their previous work, The article says Gardner was a consulting producer on seasons 3 and 4 of HBO's Succession before working on Jesse Armstrong creation. Before working on the Jesse Armstrong creation, referring to Succession, she was an executive producer of HBO and BBC fantasy co-production His Dark Materials and was a co-exec producer on AMC's Killing Eve. She has also written on shows including Starz' The Rook and Amazon's The Man in the High Castle. Moran is a British writer who created Amazon series The Devil's Hour, which starred Peter Capaldi. He also worked on Amazon sci-fi series The Feed and Rob Lowe cop drama Wild Bill. Jordan created the Netflix series Teenage Bounty Hunters, which was exec produced by Genji Cohen. Jordan is also working with the Orange is the New Black creator on another Netflix series, The Decameron. So something that I think is interesting about the phrasing of this headline is how they're closing in on a writer. For the most part, by and large, TV series or series of any kind usually don't have a singular writer. They may have a head writer who kind of gives the general outline of the story. Sometimes they do just have a single writer. For example, let's see, Moran, who wrote The Devil's Hour. The Devil's Hour was a British series that he was the singular writer for that show. For the most part, series have a writer's room, a team of writers who go through with a lead writer or showrunner. So I'm curious what direction they're taking with Harry Potter. I can't imagine they would have a single writer to tackle this whole thing. I have to imagine that they will end up either being the lead writer or a showrunner leading a writer's room, because that is a huge task for a single writer to take on an adaptation like Harry Potter, as extensive as it is. So I just thought that was curious wording, the way that they're searching for the writer for Harry Potter, but we'll see. And then next we have, let's see, so Superman Legacy, which, so the new start to the DC Comics universe. The first movie, Superman Legacy, has been renamed to just Superman. That is being written and directed by James Gunn, who you may know from the Guardians of the Galaxy movies. Who wrote and directed those. It's just a small short story. I think it's a good idea. Superman Legacy kind of makes it sound like a sequel. When you've got, when you've had other stuff like The Bourne Legacy that, or things of that nature, the Legacy subtitle makes it sound like it's a continuation or a reboot. And I guess in a sense it's a reboot, but technically we've never had a movie just called Superman. Not even the Christopher Reeve one from the 70s was technically called Superman the Movie. So this one is the first Superman movie to just be called Superman. And I think that's a good idea. It kind of just marks it as its own thing. So just small story there. All right, let's see. And then next from Disney, we get Disney's first look at Tron Ares. Tron Ares is a follow-up to Disney's 1982 seminal science fiction film Tron and the 2010 sequel Tron Legacy. Joachim Ronning directs Tron Ares and says, "I'm excited to be a part of the Tron franchise." Jared Leto recently shared a first image of the movie where he is playing the titular character Ares in AI. The synopsis says, Tron Ares follows a highly sophisticated program Ares who is sent from the digital world into the real world on a dangerous mission, marking humankind's first encounter with AI beings. The feature film stars Jared Leto, Greta Lee, Evan Peters, Hassan Minhaj, Jodie Turner-Smith, Arturo Castro, Cameron Monaghan, with Gillian Anderson. So if you were a fan of either of the other two Tron movies, both of which weren't like super successful, so I'm surprised they're having another go at it. But that's what we got. I don't imagine Daft Punk will come back to do the soundtrack, unfortunately, since they broke up or retired. I don't know. All right, and then finally, Joshua Jackson joins Sony's Karate Kid. I've reported on the Karate Kid movie over the last, few months. Most recently, I can't remember if it was last week or a couple weeks ago, they, cast the lead role for this new Karate Kid movie. But this one I had to report on because Joshua Jackson is from one of my favorite TV shows, Fringe. He plays the main character in that show. And he is awesome, and I think it's really cool to see him in a pretty significant feature film because he mostly does TV roles. So I'm really excited for that because he's cool. All right, new trailers and release dates. We got a first trailer for Horizon: An American Saga. I think that's the subtitle. That's the epic Western film directed by Kevin Costner. And it's like a 2-part epic. The first part we got a trailer for that comes out on June 28th, 2024. It's set during the Civil War. Chapter 2 will come out a couple months later in August. But if you are interested in seeing that, the trailer's out now if you want to go watch that. We've got a horror thriller, I Saw the TV Glow, starring Justice Smith, coming out May 3rd, 2024. And then The Strangers Chapter 1, a slasher film, the first of 3 chapters that I believe are all coming out this year in 2024, taking place in apparently a slasher universe I was not aware of, where we've already had 2 Strangers movies. One in, I think it was 2008, and then the second in 2018. So quite a gap between these movies. But I guess if you've heard of those or seen them, they're coming out with another film in that franchise, The Strangers Chapter 1. That is May 17th, 2024. And then opening this weekend, as I kind of said at the top of the episode, it's really just Dune Part 2. It is just kind of has the run of no one else is competing with Dune Part 2. And it's looking like it's gonna absolutely dominate. And it may dominate for the next couple of weeks. I mean, we don't really have any huge blockbusters coming out. Next week there's Kung Fu Panda 4, which is a good family movie. But Dune is kind of, we've got, kind of the singular blockbuster until Ghostbusters later in March. But I did see Dune Part 2, and it was awesome, fantastic. I really hope we get a Part 3. Denis Villeneuve has expressed interest in adapting Dune Messiah, which is the book that is a sequel to Dune. And I really hope we get that because Dune Part 2 was just so incredible. And I don't think we've seen enough of that world, and it would be awesome to get a really solid film trilogy, for the first time in a while, I think. Okay, cool. So that is this week's episode. As we close out, remember to come back next week. Tell your friends, family, enemies, distant relatives, your 5th cousins, thrice removed, who love movies about the podcast. Thanks for listening, and we'll now return you to your regularly scheduled life. Bye-bye.